Welcome to another episode of Coffee with E. I have a great one for you all. I mean, really, really good. If you are a mom in leadership, you need to stay tuned because the jewels and the diamonds and just all of the great content that Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams had dropped is so good. I promise you. I'm telling you. You know what? After you watch it, tell me if I'm not right. Tell me if I'm not right. Stay tuned. Thank you so much, Dr. Fedrizzi-Williams, for being here.
Delighted to be here. Very excited.
Yes, I had the pleasure of getting connected with you through a mutual person.
Yes.
Sydney, and she's just so dynamic. She's like, Erica, you have to have her on your podcast.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
Yes.
And I told you, we know Sydney because she performs the national anthem at all of our major events. We rope her in. She's going to perform at our commencement. She sings at our baseball community night and senior night. Yeah, she's incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah, I was like, wait, what am I finding out today? Today I'm finding this out.
Humble.
Yes, she is humble. We're so grateful to have her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, in our circle. So, but I'm excited because I heard one of your passions was talking about women empowerment and just purpose and just all those things. And this is basically what this platform is about. So
excellent.
I wanted an opportunity to talk to everyone about that subject.
Sure.
But first, I think it's important for people to know exactly who you are.
Yes.
And just give us a little glimpse behind the curtain of, how you got to where you are as the president of Central Penn College.
Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. So do share.
So people always ask, did you know you were going to be a college president or that you wanted to be a college president? And no, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I loved sports and entertainment. And when I was in middle school, I had to give a presentation in front of the class. And my teacher stopped me at the end and he said, you need to be on television. You should be a television reporter.
Really?
And I think I was 13 years old and thought, I never really thought about that. I would love to be a sports reporter. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New York Giants fan, New York Yankees fan. And I thought, what if I worked for the Mara family and reported for the New York Giants? And that would be the coolest job. So I knew I wanted to go into television and media. And I was always fascinated with that world. So when I graduated high school, I actually started at a community college. I'm first generation in this country, first generation to go to college.
Really?
So my dad was born in Italy. My mom was actually born in the United States, but her family was from Italy. So very supportive of going into higher ed, didn't know a lot about it, didn't have money saved to go. So I started at a community college, transferred to get my bachelor's at Marist College, which is in Poughkeepsie, New York. And that's where I was studying TV, radio, and film. And when I graduated, I got a call from the local radio station because our college used to send out resumes. And they said, we got your resume from your school. We know you just graduated. I think I was out for a week. Do you want to try out to be on the morning show? And I grew up listening to the station. So it was top 40 station. And I thought, well, I didn't think about radio, but I'm going to be open to it. So I went, I auditioned. And next thing I knew, I was a co-host, became the executive producer of a morning show. Did that for 5 years. And it was so much fun. But I will tell you, I was making $20,000 a year, and I was valedictorian. Okay, valedictorian of my college, and I'm making $20,000 a year.
Wow.
And thinking to myself, wow, this is really not a lot of money to live on your own in New York, not New York City, but just outside New York City. And I would get up at 2:45 in the morning. I'd go to sleep at 6:30, and then on weekends I was a club DJ, which very unconventional route to be a college president, but that was the era of nightclubs. So DJs also worked Friday nights and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the clubs. And it was great when you're 21. And then I hit 25 and thought, this is not sustainable. I need to go back to school and get my master's degree, and maybe I'll teach TV, radio, and film. And so that's what I ended up doing. The same community college where I had started, one of my mentors had gotten promoted and said, do you want to be a full-time faculty member? So I got the phone call to come in. I started teaching TV, radio, and film. I developed a new media program, met my husband the same year. We got married. We had our first son, Jake, got my master's degree. And then it was a tough time. This was right in 2008. So the recession hit.
Yes.
My husband was a union iron worker. So he was unemployed a lot. And we said, also not sustainable just to be a teacher and an iron worker. So I started working towards the administration route, went and enrolled in a doctorate program, had my second son, and I loved working at SUNY Orange. I was there for 12 years, but I decided to do my dissertation on women, specifically on mothers. And so my dissertation was Mothers as Leaders, the pathway to the college presidency. And so I wanted to find out, who are these women in these roles and how do they get to these roles? How do they get to these roles when they're balancing a family? And do they even exist? Because that was the most difficult time in my life, working full time, being a full time mom. You're a spouse, you're running. And at this point, I was now the AVP of liberal arts, which is like the dean of liberal arts. And so conducting my dissertation, I came to Central PA. There were a few college presidents who were moms here. And I had a chance to visit Central Penn's campus, and I thought, this place is very special. It's like the students that are at SUNY Orange. These are people that are putting themselves through school, that are working to change their lives and their families' lives, and I felt very drawn. And the day that I defended my dissertation, the position for Vice President of Academic Affairs opened at Central Penn.
Oh, wow.
And I said to my husband, okay, I'm going to apply for this. We both lived in New York our whole life. And one of the things I learned is, as a mother, if you're going to move your children, if you could do it before they hit middle school, it's better for everybody.
Right.
So I said, all right, let's do it. I got the position. We moved here. And then a year later, the president left unexpectedly, and I was appointed to interim. And then a year later, I got the official appointment. So sparked my interest in studying for women and how women get to these roles and how they try to find balance for it, which is not easy.
It is not easy. I mean, just in any industry, it's not easy being a woman and getting into top leadership positions. It's always a challenge. And then pack that on with being a mother, it just makes it that much more challenging.
It does.
Especially when you don't have support, family support.
That's the number one thing that led to divorces in my study.
Wow.
Were unsupportive spouses.
Wow.
So of the women that were divorced, all of them had kind of gotten to a point where they didn't have that support from a spouse. And the interesting thing about women getting to these roles, women often hold themselves back. It's not always that they can't get there. They don't even apply in the first place.
Really?
Yeah, it was a very interesting part of the study that a lot of women will get to a vice president level.
Mm-hmm.
But they're afraid to take the leap to the presidency.
What do you think the fear is? What is that?
Imposter syndrome's very real for women. So the fear is, if there's a list of 10 qualifications and a woman has 7, we often say to ourselves, I'll apply when I can get the other 3. Like I'm not
perfect.
Yeah, we feel like you have to be perfect. Men are very different. And this is not a negative for men.
Yeah.
Men might have 3 of the qualifications, and they'll say, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to get those other 7. I know I can do it, so I'm ready for this job. And it's a confidence thing. It's really just your self-efficacy. It's your belief in your ability to do the role. So even when the president position opened at Central Penn, I started having doubts. Like, I've only been a vice president for a year.
Yeah.
I'm not ready yet. And then I thought, okay, this is what everyone tells themselves. And we stop ourselves short. And then we're afraid, too, if we take on these roles, that we're not going to be a good enough mother, or we're not going to be there for our spouse, or we're not going to be a good enough friend. And we're caretakers. So even if you don't have children, if you have parents that you help with, if you have friends that you're the rock for, you feel like you have to be everything to everyone. And so sometimes careers take a backseat.
So how do we overcome that feeling of we have to be the caretaker? We have to be all the things to all the people. Like, how would you find in your studies?
So you can't be, right? You can't be everything to everyone. But you can be honest. You can ask for help. I think one of the biggest things that I learned was, it's not that your significant others or your friends won't help you. It's that they don't know you need it. And especially when you're a woman who's confident and you are doing things, people don't feel like they have to offer it to you because you look like you're Superwoman. And you're going home at night exhausted and trying to figure out, how am I going to get through another day? And the reality is, you have to tell people what you need. So you have to ask your spouse to do something. They're not mind readers. And I know we hear that all the time, but they're not mind readers. Same thing like with your housework. Sometimes you got to let it go.
Yeah.
Right? It's great if you have the means to bring someone in once every couple of weeks to help you clean. But if you can't, what's mission critical and what are you going to do to take care of yourself? Women have a very bad tendency of putting everyone before themselves, which sounds great. Servant leadership is great, But if there's nothing in your fuel, nothing fueling you, and you're not taking care of yourself, you're no good to anybody. So self-care is really important.
Yeah.
Asking for help is really important. And recognizing what you want to do too, because if you love something and you want to keep doing it, it makes it easier too.
Okay, so where do you think that like it actually stemmed from? Like, where did you do research as to how far back it went and why this actually stemmed to where we are today? And we put ourselves last, and it's almost like we have to put everyone on our back. We're the ultimate caretaker, even when we're married.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard enough when you're a single mother,
Right.
in that role. But I, as a married woman, with children, I found myself putting myself last still.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. This will make your head explode. For women who work full time and have children, they do twice as much housework as women who stay home. I remember hearing that and saying, what? There is a statistic about the amount of emotional and family support that working women do. It's actually almost double that of a woman whose responsibility is being home with her family. And that's a hard job. I don't want to make it sound like we're discrediting that, because that is incredible and it's powerful and it's important. But for women that work full time, we're like trying to do 2 full-time jobs.
Because we make up for the time that we feel like we're losing.
That's it.
We're trying to fill in those gaps.
There is a lesson I learned in my dissertation. The number one commonality among all the college presidents that I interviewed was that women feel guilt at a level that is substantially higher than men. They feel it in all aspects. So they feel that they're missing out. So they feel guilty about that. They feel guilty if they can't make it to a child's event. They feel guilty if they're not giving their spouse enough attention. They feel guilty if they're with their kid on a field trip and not at work, right? So the guilt that we put on ourselves, it's really very self-inflicted.
It is.
And it is something that we all struggle with. And it's difficult because we always want to please everybody, right? So you're asking about like, how systemic is this? We're sort of raised to be accommodating, and we're raised to have these certain responsibilities. And as a woman, you take care of the house, you take care of the home. Women are raised to cook. Now, I will say it's shifting.
Because I know I don't cook. I do not cook, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
All right, well, that's good. And you know what? It's gotten very different. Like, men really do help out in the household in ways that maybe a lot of us didn't see with our own parents or grandparents, right? They had very traditional roles. Today's, in every generation, it gets a little bit better.
Right.
It's way more equal. I see a lot of young couples, and it's balanced. And the dads are helping with the moms take care of the kids and run them places. And some of the men cook and the women don't cook. But the guilt that sometimes we place on ourselves of not being enough. I think there's always this sentiment that I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I could be doing more. And we have to stop that.
We do have to stop that, because while you're talking and reflecting on my own life,
Yeah.
I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people that are actually watching this or listening to it. The times that my girls are now adults, and my son, he's an adult, right? My children, they're adult children.
Yes.
And I'm just reflecting on those times when I actually felt as though I wish I would have been there, feeling guilty that I wasn't there. And because of that, I was a failure.
Yes.
And it just weighs so heavy on me. Even though my husband was there, those moments when I could not be, I still felt like, oh man, I feel like such a failure as a mom because of that.
But you feel that way.
Right.
Have your children ever expressed that to you?
No. I mean, just 2 weekends ago, my daughter's like, Mom, you're like the best mom ever. I'm so glad that God chose you to be my mom. Like, it got me all jacked up. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I thought I was sucking at this.
Isn't that? So I have a similar experience, and I talk about this a little bit with my students, because a lot of our students at Central Penn, 60% have kids, right? So these are people that are putting themselves through school, that are living that life where they have children. And I remember when I was studying for my doctorate degree and working full time, and there'd be nights I'd have to stay at the college and write papers. It was brutal.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, my kids at that time were 7 and 5, and we all flew to Chicago because my program was in Chicago. And even though it was an online program, I'd have residencies and have to go out there. But the whole family flew out. And my son Jake was 7 at the time, and he was standing at like the fence after I went and I got my diploma, and I was walking by and he was crying.
Oh.
And I saw him afterwards and I said, "Baby, why are you crying?" And like, it's hard to even talk about.
Yeah.
He said, "Mom, I'm so proud of you." And I thought, I've been spending the last 4 years beating myself up. And I will tell you, I had colleagues, women, that questioned if I was being selfish getting my degree. Yeah. These were professors at a college that were saying, "Your kids are so young. Why are you doing this now?" And I thought, how do you not understand? I'm doing this to change my family's life because we don't want to struggle financially anymore. I'm doing this for them, right? But all of those voices and the criticism, and I thought, here I am feeling guilty that I've been putting myself through school, borrowing money to put myself through school. And the one thing my son was learning was how hard his mama worked and that you can do anything.
Yeah.
Right? So that guilt, and I still do it to myself too. My son has a lacrosse game tomorrow night that I can't make because I'm not in an event. And it's the first one I'm missing of his entire season.
There you go.
And I'm still beating myself up over it, right? So I don't think that goes away.
No.
But you have to understand it's a small piece in a much larger picture. And your kids are learning work ethic and they're learning what you're doing.
That's exactly right.
Be open with them. Talk to them about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So why do you think we as women are so darn hard on each other? Like, why do we?
I don't know. It's such a pet peeve. It's one of the hardest things, and I hear women talk about it, and women will say, "I'm a woman's woman." If you're at a power position, especially, have to start changing some of your policies and some of your narrative to make it easier for women. And these rules, don't make them shoot.
More like, what do you? What would be some examples of?
So, I mean, there's a few things.
Yeah.
One for me, the time of day and the amount of time people schedule meetings. If you want young women to be able to move up in your organization, stop scheduling 7:30 or 8 a.m. meetings or meetings that start at 4:30 or 5. If they have kids they're putting on a bus, they can't leave their house by 7. They're feeding kids breakfast and they're trying to get them out the door, right? Same thing with the late time of day. We have one thing that came out of COVID is flexibility in time and work.
For most people, I still see some industries and some, you know,
but
struggling.
And I get that because we're back full time and we have been since June of 2020. Believe me, I was not a popular president having everybody come back, okay? Because there's still colleges that aren't back yet. Right? We were back right away because our students needed that. But we give flexibility when it's needed. So if you have an employee whose child plays a sport and that sport's once or twice a week, 4:30, because they're on a JV team, right? Let that employee leave at 4 so they can go. They will flex that time and make it up at another time.
They will work harder.
They will work harder because they're loyal.
And I understand that you care.
Yes.
They see that you care.
Yeah.
And they're going to work harder
That's
for
right.
you.
You know, people can't be unreasonable. It's not going to be like a you can leave at 3 every day thing, but you know that your kid is in sports or say you're a co-parent and your ex has the kid on these days and you have the kid on these days, then maybe your boss can flex that, right? So when you're in these roles, you have to think about that and not make people choose because that's when you start feeling guilty. So you're in positions to make some policy changes that are going to help your employees, especially like young parents. That's for males too.
Yeah. Especially millennials and Gen Zs, they will quit a job in 2 days.
Yeah. Because that's all they want.
Expected me.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's been fun to navigate. That's been a fun trend.
I'm sure. I'm sure it has. Yeah, I just think it's like so great to hear like your perspective on these things, you know? So what are some other things that you think besides the flexibility in their schedules that we should be looking for?
So in terms of supporting other women, there's a lot of women's groups, there's a lot of women's networking, and those are all great because I think that's where you first get in and you meet people. So you have to talk about real topics. You have to talk about what's a struggle for being a woman. I think in some of these roles, people feel like if they're vulnerable and they share what they're struggling with, that other women will judge them, right?
Mm.
And that's really not the purpose. The purpose is not to get together in a group and then someone is having a bad day and then you leave and this group goes and talks about them. Like, we have to have an outlet where we could talk about the challenges. We have to have a way to network and support each other. When you see an award, right? And let's say there's an award for an organization.
Yeah.
Nominate a woman who's outstanding. Write a nomination for a woman in the community that you have had interactions with. Send a note. I recently was at an event and I saw the same woman. I don't know her very well, but I see her at every event. She always greets me with a smile, and she's one of these community leaders. And I saw that she had gotten an award for something, and I sent her like a handwritten note and just said, I want to tell you that you are killing it. And every time I see you, you radiate such sunlight and happiness. And I'm happy that I've gotten to know you. Right? We have to share these things, tell each other these things, because I don't think we might think it, but we don't share it enough.
Yeah.
And the thing with self-efficacy, and we were talking about how men always feel prepared and women don't. The more you hear things that validate what you're doing is right, the more confident you start feeling.
Sure.
The more you do things, the more confident you start feeling. If you don't know how to do something, be honest about it and educate yourself. Because the more you educate yourself, the more you learn about it, you start feeling more confident, you start going for those bigger roles. So women have to nudge and support each other a little bit more.
Yeah. So can you share a time where you seen a woman that was struggling, with her, imposter syndrome, or just maybe even a leadership flaw that they had with their staff, and you saw where they can actually improve in those areas? Like, how did you handle that? Like, what light were you able to shed? Was it well received?
I think that you have to be honest with people, and when they have areas for improvement, or even if they make a mistake, you really do need to be honest and share that and call them in, kind of hold the mirror up sometimes. Because I think that in an age where everyone is a little more sensitive, we tiptoe around ways to help people improve. So I had someone who wanted to be promoted, who was in the role, I want to say, for like a year. Okay. So maybe fairly new into their position and really felt like they were ready for the next position.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and that happens a lot. Actually.
Really?
Yeah. And only because this person really felt like they were a leader or had the capacity to be a leader. So a little different than what you and I are talking about. So not so much a struggle,
yes,
but someone who maybe self-awareness wasn't quite there. And I had...
That's even better.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes you have to bring them in and say, well, let's talk about it. Why do you want this position? What is it about this position that's making you feel attracted to it? And it really came down to the person really wanted the title, but didn't understand everything that was involved in it. And so talking about the skills that she needed to develop, like, I think that's a great goal. What do you need to learn? What skills do you think that you need to have? Because I think if people are really, truly honest with themselves, sometimes they can see they're not quite ready. So I'm not afraid to have that hard conversation. I always lead with a place of kindness and education. Like, hey, there's someone I think you could talk to, or there's this non-credit course that I've taken that you might want, or this book that you can read. And what this person was lacking a little bit was a little bit of the empathy piece of it. So she wanted to be a director, but she didn't quite know how to manage people.
Okay.
But that's fixable.
That's fixable.
That's learning management. That is understanding how to have interpersonal communication. And so I think it's mentoring. That's something that I love to do. So following up, how is it going? And that person is a director now. So I will say she's there, she got there, but she needed to work at it a little bit. So honest feedback.
So as women, do you think a lot of times that we tie our identity to the titles? Because you said that it was something what she really wanted was the title.
Yeah.
So you do that. Do you see them most often than not?
I think that's women and men. I don't know. Men, yeah, I think men do the same thing. I think a lot of, when you're talking about some of the younger generations, I think they're so title fixated that they're not thinking about the work that goes into that title.
Wow.
Like, don't let that title be what you want just because it sounds really good.
Yeah.
You have to understand, and you have to understand the purpose of that role and what that role does. And, what is the good you're trying to do? And what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because you can get there a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are starstruck with titles and compensation, and it's way more than that. So you don't want to, you want to reach for things, but there are steps to get there. Like you can't just go from here to here.
Yeah.
You got to work your way.
I always like to think that I wish there was a world where we had companies or businesses or even, in the education field where there were no titles.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people would then just want to work for whatever job responsibility that they have, right?
Yep.
Work in a collaborative setting.
That's right.
Understanding what the overall objective is. Because I do think a lot of people do tie their worth
They do.
to those titles.
They do.
And one of the things, the main driving force behind the platform is, you have to understand what your self-worth is. Like, what are you worthy of? It's not because of your title that you should be feeling more worthy. It's because of who you are.
That's right.
And how you've grown as an individual.
Yeah.
So if I had my way, we could start all over. Every job would not have a title. Every industry would not have a title. And just be like, okay, yeah, well, we need someone to take care of logistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you be responsible of this? Right. And then you just come back to me and report back to how that works.
That's a really good point.
I think that the world would be at a better place because they wouldn't have to feel, people wouldn't have to feel less than, right?
I know.
And another wouldn't have to feel like, okay, well, yeah, I'm up here,
It doesn't serve
entitlement. It doesn't serve
anyone. But think about it. I mean, so you have 3 children? So
yes.
Okay, so you have 3 children. I have 2 boys. And my 2 boys are in high school. They're a freshman and a junior. And one of the first questions people ask them is, what do you want to do after high school? What do you want to be? Where do you want to? So you're immediately asked, even when you're little, what do you want to be when you grow up? So you're so fixated on one position or one thing.
Yeah.
And when I explain sort of my background to you, I was always open to what could happen.
It was all over you growing up. I just heard it all throughout yes.
The radio job was a phone call.
Yeah.
Are you open to this? Well, I didn't thought about it. So sure, I'll try that, right? Same thing with the teaching role.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go back to school, but I was still in radio. Are you interested in being a professor? Yes, I am. I didn't tell you, but same thing with the AVP role. So when I became a department chair, I wasn't applying for it. I was asked to do it. So sometimes it is putting yourself in those situations. It's being open. It's not being title obsessed.
Not being title.
It's working really hard that people recognize your skills.
Yes.
And want you to be on their team, right? And I approach everything very much like a team atmosphere. So when you're talking about it's not titles, you're absolutely right. It's really not.
So you actually went out there, you reaped what you sowed pretty much. You put in the effort, you put in the work, you studied, you knew what you wanted to do. You didn't have any hidden agendas. It was all about evolving into the person that you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And the doors opened.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Being willing to do what other people didn't want to do. Who wants to come in on a Saturday? I'll come in.
Right.
When I interned, I was very lucky because the school that I went to was about an hour and a half from New York City. So my internships in college were all in New York City. And I got to work at NBC News. Like Tom Brokaw was walking down the hallways. And I got to see like Maurice Bernard, who's now on CBS, but he was on NBC at that time. So I got to see all these people. And they needed people for the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Day Parade. These are interns, right? We were interns. They needed someone for the Columbus Day Parade.
Yeah.
And I'd always be like, I'll come in on a Saturday. I'll do this because and this is any employer anywhere. They want people who are willing to take on more. So you have to show that you're hungry and not hungry in a way where you're trying to climb. You just want to be helpful.
Yeah.
Someone needs help, you offer to help. And then they think of you when a position opens. So you really have to put yourself out there and be available to what others need.
Yeah.
That was a big part of how I got on almost all of my roles, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is just to be commended. Like, seriously.
Oh, thanks.
You get out of life what you put into it.
You really
do.
do.
People think that you're supposed to be handed something. You're through entitlement. So
not at all.
I applaud you for that. So then, as your position now, what's the legacy that you want to leave?
Oh, that's such a good question. I want students, when they remember me or remember the college, to remember that their lives were transformed. I know what the power of education did for me and my husband. I mean, we talk about it. You know, our big goal was always, we want to have a pool one day. Like that'll show us that we made it, right?
Love it.
Like we want a pool. This is when we're, you know, he's not working. I'm at this time, I'm finally a professor, but I'm only making $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. So we are struggling. We have an infant. I'm trying to go to college. We're like, one day we're going to have a pool. And so I think it was maybe 1 or 2 summers ago. We now have a pool. And we're sitting there and I was like, do you remember like 15 years ago, we never thought that this would happen to us.
Yeah.
And we both worked really hard to get there. And so I know that education is absolutely transformative. And I know there's a lot out there right now about do you need an education or not. It doesn't matter what it's in or what level it's in. It's that it's something that's helping you further your purpose. So I want to help people find their purpose. I want my legacy to be that they went to Central Penn and they found out their why. They know what their purpose is in life, and we helped them get there.
Man, I mean, I don't need a degree, but I'm coming.
I'm going to figure something. I'm going to have you come talk to our students because they would love you.
Thank you.
But oh man, yeah, I'm pretty passionate about it.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So, do you find that young women are gravitating to you?
I do. I think that they are surprised to hear my journey. I think it's what you said before.
Really?
Well, I think people assume you're in these roles, you've always been in these roles, or you haven't had struggles. And, you know, I love to meet with new students because I think they're surprised at how similar our paths were. Right. That my family didn't have money. So I had to start at a community college and I put myself through school and I took out student loans and I worked and then I was a mom going to school. Right. So the moms identify with that. So I think when they hear that, oh, our stories are kind of similar, they gravitate.
Isn't that the best?
It's the greatest. And we are a small enough institution. I get to know them.
Yeah.
I know our students. I see them in the hallway. I know their names. I know what they're coming here for. It's very different. It's a special college.
That's awesome.
Really.
That is so awesome. So then, do you see yourself doing something like outside of Central Penn? Do you see yourself doing something else with women? Or do you have any rising there?
I would love to. I would love to get more involved. I mean, I've done things like junior achievement before and met with students. I would love to do something where I'm able to mentor in more of a capacity. I'm on the Harrisburg Chamber of Commerce. I was part of Leadership Harrisburg area, and there we had a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of public speaking, so I get to present and connect in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's got to be my next step, is to figure out how I could do that more on a community level, for sure.
Yeah. So then to the woman that is now starting, that is that 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And may feel like, struggle with imposter syndrome or what their big why is. What would you say to them starting out that's going to help them?
I would say you don't have to have it all figured out today. You don't need to know your why and your purpose. You don't need to worry about what's coming 3 years from now, but you have to keep going. If you never walk forward, you're always going to be in the same place. And it's going to get hard. There's a reason that not everyone has a degree, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. And so people would say, like, how did you do it? I didn't feel like I had a choice. For me, that was my ticket to freedom for my family. And I was not going to stop. And I certainly wasn't going to borrow all this money. My parents worked to get to this country. I wasn't going to take on this debt and not graduate. I wasn't going to do it. So you just have to keep going. And when you get stuck or you get lost, you don't stop. You rest. You don't quit, you rest. And you ask for help. That could be your professors. That could be your academic advisors or your faculty advisors. That could be your spouse or your parents. But don't stop. You have to keep moving forward. It's going to get hard. And you just know that this is temporary, right? Everyone says it's not a race, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
The stress is temporary. The hardships are temporary. You're going to get to the other side of it, and be open to possibilities, because your why might change.
Mm-hmm.
Your career might change. And a lot of us have different careers. I think the average person has 7 careers, not 7 jobs, 7 careers in their life. So you might switch industries altogether, but be open to it.
Wow. So then to the single mother
Yeah.
Or to the new divorcee that has to start over and you have these children and they don't have anything.
Yeah.
What would be your suggestion for them?
So there are so many opportunities if we're talking education and even just changing your life, right? Start with something small. So the way that when I got to Central Penn, we had associate's and bachelor's degrees in one master's program. But there's a lot of value in certificates. You don't need a bachelor's degree right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
If you're a single mom or you're a single dad and you're thinking about going back to school, start with a certificate. Start with something that's 18 credits, right? That's 6 classes. You could do 6 classes. You can get that done in a year, and now you have a credential that's going to help you earn more. Make sure that wherever you go, like if you're coming to Central Penn, that certificate's going to transfer into an associate's degree.
Okay.
Now you're part of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
You get your associate's, you're halfway to a bachelor's degree. You can do it in steps. I know we are in a culture that's immediate and we want immediate gratification. We want everything tomorrow.
Yes.
It's a long-term process. But if you build on your education or build on your career, same thing with a career.
Mm-hmm.
Start where you are. You're not going to go in and be a vice president.
Right.
You're going to start at a different level, but start at that level, demonstrate your value as an employee, work really hard. And in terms of like your kids in your life, a lot of people feel like my kids are totally separate than my job.
Yeah.
And yes, you're not going to bring your child to an office, right? Like and sit there for the day. There are people that do that.
Yes.
You have to tell them you can't bring your kid here when they're sick. Like stay home. But integrate them into your world. Mm-hmm. When you have an event, bring your son or daughter as your date, right? Your worlds don't have to be separate. Mm-hmm. Start where you are. Work your way up, work hard, volunteer, raise your hand, network. So get to know people. And it doesn't have to
Put
be...
a pin in network.
Yeah.
Network. People don't know how to do that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
We do.
That is, I didn't realize not everyone's like us and just likes to talk to people.
No.
So for us, it's like, yeah, I love networking. You get to find out how people are doing.
Yes.
It's not natural for a lot of people.
No.
But put yourself out there, meet as many people as you can, because all those jobs that I got, they were relational. They were from forming connections, getting to know people, demonstrating I wanted to be there. So they thought about me when they had a position.
Yes.
Get to know other people that can help position you moving forward.
That's worth saying again.
Yeah.
You got into positions because you made sure you put yourself in rooms, right? That had people in it.
That's right.
That you knew was going to be able to assist you with getting where you wanted to go.
That's right.
And you had no shame in it.
No.
You were like, hey, I want to build a relationship with you.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do. They remembered you.
Right.
And now you're here.
Right.
A lot of people don't know how to do that.
They don't. And when I was young, I don't think I realized I was doing it. I think,
well, that's the thing.
I think I liked my professors, right? So when they were having a lecture, I showed up because I genuinely liked them. I didn't realize every time I was volunteering or offering to do something or I was doing extra credit that I was helping them remember me. Right. So yes, with the networking piece of it, you have to be in the room for people to remember you. If you send a resume cold and they've never met you, they don't know who you are. Yes, they can look at your LinkedIn page and you might have really great objectives on paper. But if no one's ever seen you, had a conversation with you, you're not going to be at the top of the list, no matter how qualified you are. And you might be the best person.
That's exactly right.
You got to put yourself in the room.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the most rewarding feeling, too, when you do it. Because in order for someone to network, the key is understanding that everyone's human.
Right.
Everyone has 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
Everyone has challenges. Everyone wakes up in the morning, right?
That's it.
You have to brush your teeth.
You're so right.
Everyone is the same. And I think
right.
because of these titles that we were talking about,
it freaks people out.
It freaks people out. But if you look at them as, okay, if you're younger, you'd be like, oh, this is my mom or my dad, or whoever you have a great relationship with, just think of them as that person.
That's right.
And then go up to them and, hey, you know what? I'm such and such. I'm so looking forward to meeting you.
Exactly.
I saw you from across the room. I remember seeing you, in the Central Penn Business Journal.
That's right.
And I love the article about you, about leadership, and there you go. We're like, oh, you did do your research. I want to be flattered because, one, I want to be like, oh my gosh, they read about me. Like, yeah, that's just the type of person I am. Like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to this person.
They remembered or he made an impression. Yes.
Yeah, that's just
such good advice.
Yeah.
I think in networking situations, people feel like they have to be a salesperson or give their elevator pitch or this is what I do and this is who I am. No. this hi, how are you? I find, and I told you I love sports, that's like a universal language.
Oh,
right?
100%.
And I am often in my role one of the only, if not the only woman in the room. I have a board. I have a board who's phenomenal. I have phenomenal board members. There's 10 people, 8 are men and 2 are women.
Yes.
And I almost always open with golf or football or what's happening in baseball.
It's just too easy.
It disarms everybody. They're like, yes. And they start talking about their teams, right? And everyone is like, okay, that's a commonality.
It is a commonality.
If you don't know anything about sports, don't do that. Right? You're not someone who is into sports.
They will like, what in the world?
Right. But if you're into certain type of entertainment or like a new show that's out, people just want to have conversations and be relaxed. It doesn't always have to be, hi, I'm Linda Fedrizzi and this is what I do at Central Penn. It's more like it's a pleasure to meet you. And you're right. If you've seen them somewhere, seen them present, read something about them or their organization that they did, hey, I heard about your business and what you guys are doing for the local community, and I was blown away by it.
Yeah.
Just be genuine. That's the other thing.
Genuine.
You have to be genuine. People can see through fake people.
It's
not attractive.
And no one wants anyone to vomit on them either with all their credentials and so forth.
Yeah,
That's
not at all.
Like, oh gosh, okay. Yeah, because remember, we're human.
That's it.
Yeah, we're human.
Yeah.
Like, so, and to be not entertained, but we want to find out what we're related, what's relatable about each other.
That's right.
And we want to go from there. Yeah.
Totally right. So being genuine, people just want to get to know you for you. You could talk about what you do if you're asked about it, but just take a genuine interest and have a conversation with someone.
There you go. I love this. Okay, so then to end it off, you are in a leadership position, and a lot of people that are going to be watching this are emerging leaders or also leaders themselves. And you did say something that triggered this question. You were the only female most times in a room. How do women who are ambitious go-getters, who are in leadership positions, how do you navigate that playing field?
Yeah, I used to be so nervous about it. Again, I was in my own head about it. And I think that was one of the things that I had to learn, like, they don't care that you're the only woman here. You care that you're the only woman here, right? And I would often be very quiet or kind of sit and listen. And then I realized I have things to offer and say. You don't need to overpower the conversation. You need to treat it as if you were in a room, very similar to what you just said, with your equals, with people that you're getting to know. I shouldn't say often, that's the wrong word. I've been treated like, the little lady in the room, like, oh, that's Linda. She's so sweet. She's so kind. But I smile and it's okay. I don't get offended. You don't want to come in there guns blazing, like you're looking for something to get offended by. You just sometimes I'll laugh and I'll be like, yeah, I actually do know a little something about this, right? And I'll laugh with them and I'll joke with them. But I think you have to be confident. You have to believe in your ability. If you don't know the answer to something, just say that. I'm not really familiar with that. I'll find out about that. And keep your shoulders back and your head up. And I used to, being a tall person, I wouldn't always wear heels. Now I like wearing heels because I'm eye to eye with the men in the room. I'm actually quite a bit taller than most of my board members, as I'm sure you probably are in similar situations. So
really,
be confident, come prepared. That's the other thing I would say. I think something that gives me comfort in any of my situations, I don't walk into them blind. I know who I'm meeting with, who's going to be there. If it's on a specific topic, we have an agenda, I have my notes prepared. And not that I need to read from them, but it's my security blanket. I won't go into a situation not knowing what I'm going to be asked or what I'm going to do, right? You want to be as prepared as possible so you feel confident. Yeah, and don't let that be a barrier. Just because you might be the only female. You walk in, you say hi, you shake hands, ask how. What'd you think of the Masters? It's McElroy finally got his, whatever. It's not a trifecta, but I know he won all 4, right?
Yeah.
You want to put yourself in a situation where you can show that you can hang with the guys too.
I love this. You know what? This has been such a great conversation.
I've enjoyed it too.
Yes. And I know that, yes, the community we're building, they're going to enjoy it. And if anyone has any questions, I will be sure to give them your email address. Yes. I don't mind any specific question that they have in the comments. I'll be sure to make sure I'm like, hey, Linda.
I love it. I love talking to people, connecting with people. So please reach out.
I love it. Thank you so much. And you know what, everyone? Thank you so much for listening and to watching. And I look forward to seeing you and meeting you in the comments.